look up at the night sky and then look down at the palm of your hand. In this explainer, we're going to take a pretty massive journey. We're zooming all the way from the vast overarching rules that govern the entire physical universe right down to the microscopic biological machines that are quite literally keeping you alive right this very second. Nature is wildly diverse, but it actually operates on a really unified set of principles. And our goal today is to connect the dots between the massive scale of physics and the absolute precision of biology. Let's dive in. We're starting off with this beautiful thought from the late Stephen Hawking. It's a great reminder that science, at its core, is really about the joy of uncovering nature's hidden rules. Rules that are pragmatic, but also incredibly elegant. Whether we're looking at the swirling plasma of a distant star or peering through a microscope at a single living cell, that core drive, the thrill of discovering something nobody knew before, it's exactly the same for both the physicist and the biologist. All right, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We've got 6 parts. 1. The rules of nature. 2. Branches of physical science. 3. The language of measurement. 4. Zooming in on biological reactions. 5. Nature's biological catalysts. And finally, 6. The lock and key model. Okay, section 1. The rules of nature, a pragmatic set of rules. Moving right along to section 2, branches of physical science, categorizing the universe. So, to make sense of this massive, infinitely complex reality we live in, scientists had to break it down. They categorized their observations into these distinct, manageable branches. You've got mechanics dealing with motion and gravity, thermodynamics diving into heat and energy, optics studying the behavior of light, all the way to atomic physics, looking at the literal building blocks of matter. Categorizing the universe like this just makes the infinite feel, a little bit more understandable for us. And this table here brilliantly illustrates the sheer scale of physical science. Just look at the contrast. You have astrophysics, studying the entire universe and massive celestial objects. Then there's plasma physics, observing the ionized state of matter, like the superheated glowing gas of stars. And in complete contrast to looking out at the stars, geophysics turns the lens inward to study the internal structure of our very own planet. Physics spans the absolutely cosmic all the way down to the dirt beneath our feet. Which brings us to section 3, the language of measurement, quantifying reality. Because to study any of these branches, whether it's the molten core of the Earth or the frozen edge of a galaxy, we need a universal language, and that is measurement. The crucial point here is that without physical quantities, we wouldn't be able to accurately describe anything around us. A physical quantity requires 2 things, a magnitude, which is just the number, and a unit. Because without a unit, a magnitude means absolutely nothing. If I tell you that you need 5 to survive, what does that mean? Do I mean 5 liters of water or 5 seconds of oxygen? This exact precision is what allows us to formulate the laws of physics and actually build the technology we use every day. But that raises a super fascinating question. Now that we know how we measure the macroscopic physical world, what happens when we take that exact same desire for structure and precision and zoom in a million times? How does nature regulate itself on a microscopic, cellular level? Let's transition from the macro to the micro. Section 4, zooming in on biological reactions, the mechanics of life. Just as planets orbit according to strict physical laws, inside every single living organism, there's a bustling, highly regulated world of continuous chemical reactions taking place. We call these processes metabolic reactions. They basically come in 2 flavors, constructive reactions, anabolism, and destructive reactions, catabolism. But here's the major biological catch. These reactions require a huge amount of initial energy to get started, known as activation energy. Think of it like having to push a massive, heavy boulder up a steep hill before it can finally roll down the other side. If our bodies had to just sit around and wait for these reactions to happen naturally, we simply wouldn't survive. So, how does the body speed this up? Enter Section 5, Nature's Biological Catalysts, regulating the speed of life. Nature's elegant solution to this boulder-pushing problem is an incredibly precise, microscopic machine called an enzyme. Enzymes are biocatalysts. Made mostly of 3-dimensionally folded chains of amino acids, their specific physical shape lets them grab onto reactants and drastically lower the activation energy required. And honestly, the most incredible part? Because the enzyme itself is never consumed or used up during the chemical reaction, a single enzyme can rapidly catalyze thousands of reactions a second, over and over and over again. But what makes them truly fascinating is their extreme specificity. And just like physicists categorize the universe into branches,
Biologists categorize these enzymes to bring order to the thousands of known reactions. In fact, there's a strict classification system assigning them an EC number across 6 major classes. A fun little mnemonic to remember them is OXLI hot. We're talking oxidoreductases for electron transfers, transferases for swapping functional groups, and hydrolases that use water to break bonds, like how lipases only act on ester bonds and fats. Then you've got lyases cleaving bonds without water, isomerases rearranging a single molecule structure, and finally ligases, which act like microscopic glue, using ATP to stitch 2 large molecules together. Each enzyme knows its exact job, and it only does that job.
Furthermore, these specialized tools operate in very specific jurisdictions. We divide them based on where they actually do their work. Intracellular enzymes manage reactions deep inside the cell, like ATPase. On the flip side, extracellular enzymes are secreted to work outside of the cell, like pepsin and lipase, which help digest your food. It is just a beautifully organized, highly efficient system of cellular labor.
And that brings us to Section 6, the lock and key model, biological precision.
To really appreciate this biological precision, check out the actual geometric fit happening here. The active site of the enzyme is shaped perfectly, and I mean perfectly, to attract and dock a specific substrate, which is the molecule it's going to work on. It's not just random chemistry happening in a soup, it is physical geometry operating on a microscopic scale. Watch how this builds step by step. First, the specific substrate docks right into the active site. Second, they form what's called the enzyme-substrate complex, or ESC. Boom, they're locked together. Then, the chemical reaction quickly occurs, the final products are released, and the enzyme is left completely unchanged, instantly ready to do the whole thing all over again with the next substrate. Biologists refer to this as the lock and key model. Just as theoretical physicists use specific mathematical models as keys to unlock the massive mysteries of the universe, nature uses this strict physical lock and key mechanism to perfectly regulate the chemical reactions of life. Without this exact geometric fit, the metabolic reactions keeping you and me alive right now would grind to a complete halt. It really is mind-blowing how the pragmatic rules of nature scale, isn't it? From using a massive telescope to track the properties of a distant galaxy, down to using an electron microscope to watch an enzyme perfectly unlock a chemical reaction, the universe is built on discoverable rules. So if nature has a specific geometric key for every microscopic lock inside your body, what other universal rules are just waiting out there to be discovered? Keep observing and definitely keep asking questions. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.